Hello and welcome to Cyber Threat Thursday, the very first Cyber Threat Thursday from the Cybercrime Support Network, CSN. I'm Kristin Judge, the founder, and I am so excited to be here with one of our advisory board members and a friend and someone that I look up to and follow on Twitter and keep an eye on the latest, Erich Kron from KnowBe4. Erich, would you introduce yourself a little bit?
Certainly. I'm happy to be here, Kristin, as usual. But yeah, my name is Erich Kron. I'm a security awareness advocate for KnowBe4. If you've heard of KnowBe4, we do a lot of the simulated phishing and training. We really focus on the human side of things, which is why I think the topics that we have today, Kristin, are very, very relevant for what we're doing here.
Yeah, we want to try and stay on top of it with these live broadcasts. And we're going to do a Cyber Threat Thursday at least once a month with experts like you. But if it's popular enough, we might do it twice a month. But it's important that we are having frank discussions in the platforms where people are. We're going to put this out on our Facebook, also our YouTube. We do that with the Cyber Tip Tuesdays also. Say that 4 times fast. So let's just dive right in. Social media. We're all there, whether we want to be or not. You just sort of can't live in this day and age without being on at least one platform. And there was a really interesting hack on Twitter. Was it a month or two ago now? I can't keep track of time. But talk to us a little bit about what you saw with that cryptocurrency hotshot 17-year-old, I think from Florida, by you.
Yeah. Actually, I'm in the Tampa area, and he was from our own backyard. So very interesting. I don't know that we have all the details. There's a couple things that I noticed about this that I do want to talk about. And that is when Twitter found out it was happening. If you had a chance to look at their support side, they were incredibly responsive to that, which was great as an organization to be that way to people. So when people don't know what's going on, the worst thing you can have is deafening silence. And they were awesome about that. Now, it looks like what happened is this kid used a classic social engineering technique, which is basically using a phone to call somebody. And my understanding is it was a basic, like, this is your IT person, I need to confirm your password sort of thing.
Wow.
And that person gave it up. And then the attackers, I believe they had somebody on the inside that knew a lot of the information that was going around as well. I don't know all the details. I think we'll get more of that in court.
Yeah.
But then they knew the tool that they would go to that managed all of these, blue check verified accounts. And so we're talking like Apple. We're talking about the big ones here. And so, they ended up spinning up this deal and said, hey, if you send me Bitcoin, I will double it coming back to you. And because it came from a trusted source, like these verified accounts, people fell for it. And, he made $120,000 in an hour or so, which to me was interesting because that level of access, had they sold that level of access on the dark web, would have been worth way, way more than what it was. And it wasn't done as maliciously as it could have been. I mean, obviously it was a problem, but it could have been a whole lot worse. And that should be an eye opener for all of us.
Yeah, well, and was $120,000 worth actually going probably to prison for the rest of your life when you're 17? I don't understand how people think that through. I'm too paranoid, I guess.
Yeah, the payback on that was extremely low. I mean, if you look at it compared to a lot of the other scams that go on, 120K is really nothing, right?
Right.
And for that level of exposure, I mean, if you're going to go after something like Twitter, you better believe they're going to have some top people coming out and figuring out who you are. And they did through some things like, I believe it was his Coinbase account where you do the transfer, the money transfer things for the cyber currency. Him and some of his accomplices, they registered it under a real name and it was validated. So that's, how they found them so quickly. But if you're going to poke the bear the size of Twitter, you got to expect that they're going to come back after you.
Yeah. Well, and, with Twitter, especially, people are on there a lot right now because of all the misinformation and everything. Are there other ways that people are being socially engineered on their Twitter or Facebook or social media accounts?
Well, honestly, I mean, social media is full of disinformation campaigns right now. And that is, to me, a very scary thing as well. we're coming into an election season. We're seeing a lot of this sort of stuff going on that are preying on people's emotions, right? And that's what social engineering really does, is it goes after emotions. It gets you riled up, and then you kind of drop your whole premise of critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see this on Facebook a lot. I see this even on Twitter. And we know that nation states are actually getting involved in some of these disinformation campaigns, but they also use this premise as, scams. So we have COVID-19 going on, big surprise there, right? Everybody knows that. But they use things like the Canadian government, for example, just recently had come out and said, we're going to do a COVID tracing app for your phones. And they kind of left it at that, which left the bad guys a real big opening. And what they did is spun up a couple of fake websites that looked like it was Canadian Health and said, here's your COVID tracing app. And it turned out it was actually ransomware on your phone.
Yep. Yeah, because with the urgency and people are distracted, I think with the COVID-19, on our blog for cybersecurity, cyber crime support network, we have a blog, and Taryn from our team did a really good job of keeping track. Even we started in February looking at scams around COVID, and she's kept a really good, diary basically of what kind of scams are happening out there. And it is incredible. And it goes right along with what we talk about on Scam Spotter. If someone has an urgent request for you, then it's probably a scam. And right now, since people are so, anxious and scared, and some people are in really bad positions, that urgency might be something they're more apt to take advantage of because they just aren't, in their regular place. With Twitter, do you know, I think it was back in 2011 or so, don't quote me, but the Federal Trade Commission actually did a case against Twitter because they let almost everybody in the company have admin access. Do you know if this person who was, impacted by the phishing was someone who already had admin access that wasn't supposed to have admin access? Have you heard anything about that yet?
I haven't heard anything definitive. The word that I have heard is that it was an admin, but they were part of a smaller group that had those privileges.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was done all over. And, speaking about Twitter, just looking at the impact that can be done. Do you remember back when the Associated Press Twitter account got hacked, and they posted something along the lines of there was an explosion in the White House or something like that, and this was under Barack Obama. Well, if you look at the time that came out and coincided with our stock prices, like the Wall Street just took a drop for a few minutes after that happened. There's a lot of power in social media that people don't understand. It's more than fun and games.
Right. Yeah. And it used to be that way. And I unfortunately, for the gentleman who tried that, the young kid basically who tried that in Florida, if he was just thinking this is going to be fun and games, I mean, there are consequences now, and the law enforcement can find you. I mean, everybody leaves some kind of a breadcrumb, and it is a digital age you live in. I don't care how hard you try to get on a VPN or do this or change your IP address. Do you think the criminals are getting better at going around things, or are we getting better at catching them? I know we're not having a lot of law enforcement prosecutions, but do you think the criminals are actually being found more often now? Is it hard for them to keep themselves under the radar?
Honestly, I think we know who a lot of the criminals are.
Yeah.
We just can't do anything about it because some of this stuff is happening on, via keyboard a continent away, where we can't extradite these people. We can't charge them. We can't do much with them. Some of the big scammers have been picked up. We saw the Dridex group had some arrests last year. Momfa, or Hush Puppy, with the BEC scams, he got picked up in I think Nigeria. But honestly, we don't see all that much. We had a couple of things here. We had Operation WireWire, which was a wire transfer fraud roundup, basically, and then they did Rewire, I think, the next year. And it got a few people. It got a couple $1 million, but in the grand scheme of things, compared to the actual crime that's going on, we're unfortunately not even making a dent at this point.
No, I've been doing a lot of work with Third Way, and they've done some actual studies. All of their research seems to point to why we exist at CSN. It's really interesting. I love their stuff. When I read it, I'm like, oh my goodness, I couldn't have read that or written it any better. But they've seen that, I think it's 0.0003 or something of cyber criminals get prosecuted. But there was a new one recently, this week, I think it was, someone in Africa who had been behind romance scams. But if you catch one perpetrator in Africa that's made 7 billion on romance scams, there's going to be 17 others that are probably just in the same village. You know, it's really profitable. So I feel like we're not going to be able to stop the criminals. We have to stop the citizens from clicking and giving. And, you know, so to me, I feel like it's really important for us just to make it not lucrative. Because until it's not lucrative, they're just going to keep doing it. There's more people every day. My son will even say to me sometimes, Mom, why are we on the good side of this? We're not making any money. There's so much money to be made and they never get caught. Well, they do get caught sometimes, but you know, we have to stop it being lucrative. Would you agree with that mission?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the only way we're going to do this. It's the same with the scams as it is ransomware. As long as they're making this money hand over fist, they're going to continue doing it, because obviously the risk, you know, and reward ratio there is way tilted towards the reward side.
Yeah.
And what's unfortunate is a lot of these places where these people are, maybe countries where there's very smart people, Eastern Europe, for example, very smart people, not a lot of opportunities for good money and legitimate work. And so they find things like this where in some cases it's not even necessarily culturally taboo. You know, it's kind of like in certain countries, if you go and you haggle in the market and you pay way too much, they don't feel like they're ripping you off because you should add better skills haggling, right?
That's right.
That's the cultural side of things. And they sort of feel like, hey, if you fell for it, that's on you, not me. And so that's what makes it so hard to crush, really, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. So we need to stop people, I think, from being re-victimized. You know, certainly the prevention is important, and the education. We can never stop doing education and awareness. I also want to make sure that we focus on here, in addition to what our great friends are doing in prevention and awareness, is when there's been a breach, we get them to improve their security. We find with our 211 program, you know, we have the 211 live in 6 states now, where someone can call and get help with cybercrime. If that's live in someone's state, they can see it when they go to fraudsupport.org. A 211 will pop up and it'll tell them they can talk to someone. So please don't call all 211s for cybercrime yet. We're getting there. But so when people call 211, about 90% say, I don't think I'm going to be a victim again, because I've talked to someone, I've read the material, I've gone through the videos you sent now, and I feel more empowered. That can change the landscape by, I think, exponential success in making sure that people are not re-victimized. Because I think they're now selling on the dark web. You know more about the dark web than I do, probably, but I've heard that they're selling the names and phone numbers and emails of people who've already been scammed once, because they're more likely to be scammed a second time. Is that true?
I've heard that same thing. I've seen it with organizations too, organizations that fall for something. You know, these groups, a lot of them are very organized groups, and they do share information among each other. And so, you know, that absolutely is. And, you know, I like to liken it to a magic trick when you think about this. So you see a magic trick and you're just astounded by it. I do a card trick in some of my presentations, and I can make a card disappear, right, through the power of PowerPoint.
We could do that next time on the
right. Yeah.
next live.
But, you know, once you actually understand the mechanics behind the trick and how it worked, it's easy to spot it again, and you know exactly how it plays out. Even if the circumstances are a little bit different, you can still see and go, I know how this game is played. And that's why the education piece is so incredibly powerful, with getting people to understand how that worked and why they fell for it. So then when something comes in, even if it's not the same, it's similar, they go, yeah, not this time, you know?
That really helps me feel even better about Scam Spotter, because we talk about the 3 golden rules. Number 1, slow down, because a scam will probably have an urgency to it. Number 2, do a spot check. So if your bank is saying to you, or you think your boss is saying to you, or your IT person is saying to you, I need your password, or I need this, go actually call the real IT help desk, the number that you've always had, or the number on the back of your credit card, and talk to the real bank and say, are you actually trying to get a hold of me? And then the 3rd golden rule is, don't send gift cards as forms of payment. If we just stop that one alone, can you imagine the money we're going to save? I mean, that is the, you know, the currency of choice, except for cryptocurrency in these scams. And I've heard of a retailer now too, when someone went to go buy $200, $300 in gift cards. They read a statement and said, do you know there are scams related to gift cards? Do you know the person? Think about, do you know the person you're sending this to? I think that would be huge. If we could just educate people at the point of sale, that would be amazing. And I know the retail industry is trying to work on that too.
Well, I've seen something similar like at Walmart at the customer service desk around the Western Union stuff.
Great.
And it says, if you're transferring stuff to somebody you don't know, it's a scam.
Wow.
It's very upfront about it right there. Like, be careful with this sort of thing. And yeah, the gift card thing always kind of blows my mind because we see this a lot in like the IRS scams, right? So the IRS calls and says, if you don't pay us by the time my shift is over, because that's what's important to the IRS, we're going to have you arrested. By the way, you need to pay me in gift cards. And, one of the things about this is we look at that and we go, how could these people fall for this? That's just silly. But here's the deal that people don't understand is that people are under a lot of stress.
That's right.
At the time, right? And that really clouds our judgment. There's a lot of people out there that are not necessarily even from this country that are used to a different way of life where they came from. This could be something that could really happen in the places they came from. There's so many different variables there that we never think about that, we as, maybe older adults realize this is not good, but someone who's just 18, 19, they may not understand that. And they're going, oh my gosh, and they think they're in trouble.
That's right. Well, Perry Carpenter was on a webcast with me yesterday. And so Eric does have a little bit of technical difficulty, but he's going to be right back. So I'll tell you about Perry Carpenter was on from KnowBe4 was on a webcast with me yesterday, and he was showing how it's all in the way you tell people. And he had, he told the story of the men's urinals and how they used to be a total mess.
The nudge theory.
Once they put something in there, like a fly that you can try and hit, there was no more mess. I thought that was really awesome. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. That's the nudge theory thing. And it's getting somebody to do something, even though they don't realize you're getting them to do it. And it's not necessarily always done maliciously, but that is actually a malicious angle too, is to mess with that a little bit. I mean, Perry is a brilliant guy when it comes to social engineering and the psychology behind it. His book is fantastic. If you've not read that, I highly recommend it. But yeah, that kind of stuff, it's amazing how that can take our human behavior and kind of drive us in a direction without being blatant about it.
Right.
And it's very powerful.
The grandparent scams and the romance scams are the ones that really get to my heart, and the military scams. So that's what we're really trying to focus on at CSN in the next 12 months. We're thankful that Craig Newmark has funded us to do a military facing campaign, which I think is really important because they are targeted because they're moving a lot. They aren't able to chat with their spouses sometimes because they're on duty. And so that one I'm excited about. But the seniors and the romance scams are something that's really breaking my heart. And I think we need to be explaining to people that it's okay to doubt in the beginning, but they do follow the obituaries. And I just had this happen in my family. Someone was almost scammed because there was too much information in an obituary. And I like to now tell people, you don't have to list the entire family in the obituary. Don't say the names of the grandchildren and the cousins. Just say what a great person they were and how much they'll be missed, what their accomplishments were, but you don't name all the people, because that just happened in my family. Someone got a call from supposedly my son, and he was supposedly in Pennsylvania because someone's mom died of COVID, and he was in a car accident and his phone got broken, but he needed money right away. Well, you talk to a grandparent about their grandchild, they'll do anything. They'll do backflips. I mean, whatever it takes. And they'll say, don't tell mom. I know she'll be scared. It's okay, grandma. I just need the money from you. And fortunately, not because I work in cyber, but this person in our family knew what to do because her friend had been a victim and told her about her story. And she remembered her friend. So one of the things I really want to start telling people to do is tell your story. Tell other people what happened to you. So you can maybe stop someone else because they say, oh, well, that person's smart. That's my friend. If it happened to them, I better have my, my eyes open a little bit better.
Yep. And just like the magic trick, once you've seen it and understand the mechanics behind it, you go, hey, wait a minute here, it's heartbreaking to hear and see these sorts of things happen. And we see it and hear it, just far too often, with these people taking advantage of, especially the elderly, who are in fact very helpful. In many cases, they have their nest egg, they have a life savings that they can pull from. They're very giving, caring people, where obviously the younger people have less in the bank, they can do less.
That's
And that's
right.
why they're
No
targeted
one's
so
going to
much.
try and scam. Exactly. It's not because they're feeble or not smart and that. I like to dispel that myth. My son doesn't have any money, so who's going to go after him?
Yeah.
Right? It's
Yep.
because they have the money. Why do you rob a bank? Because that's where the money is. Why do you go after seniors? Because they have a retirement account or a home or equity or whatever it may be.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we see that emotional game that happens all the time with them. So I'm with you there. My heart breaks when I hear that sort of thing
Yeah.
happen. One of the toughest things that I've seen with romance scams is once somebody does get sucked into it, though, is getting them to admit that this person is not who they think they are. Even when given proof, a lot of times they want to hold on to that for whatever reason. That's a challenge.
Yeah, and that's why we're hoping that Scam Spotter, when you go there, someone can actually look up the person. And then I just saw also we're going to try and post that the new prosecution that was just done by the Attorney General for the folks that were in Africa. They have a list of the top 20 names that people were using as pretend boyfriends and girlfriends. And so we just got to get that word out there and let people know, hey, check this, check here, do a reverse image lookup, and that's what we
Yep.
have on the Scam Spotter. And we have that on fraud support too. And I'll tell you, it's one of the pages people spend almost 8 minutes on
Wow.
average. People stay on that romance scam page for about 8 minutes. And if you know anything about websites, people don't spend 8 minutes on any website. So yeah, it's an issue that we all need to come together and tell people not to be embarrassed. It's okay. It's happening to millions of people right now today.
Yep. Yep. And it's not necessarily their fault. These folks are
No.
extremely good at what they're doing. And that's why,
Mhm.
with KnowBe4, we deal with the corporate thing and the end user training. And we do point out that the end users are the target. And a lot of times they are why these breaches happen. But it's also not their fault. And
Right.
it's the attackers, they know what they're doing. They've done this so many times before. They have a book that basically they're flipping through a script and they just
Yeah.
know what you're going
Yeah.
to say before you say it,
Well,
or
and
how
if
to deal with it.
you've overshared on social media, if I did 10 minutes and I went and looked up somebody and I could find out what their favorite food, they just lost their husband, they love cats, their kids' names, their grandkids' names, they have 3 sisters, whatever it may be, I can start saying, "Oh, you know what? I'm Catholic too." Or I'm Jewish too, or I also love cats, and oh my goodness, we
Yep.
just have so much in common. And of course, they're making it up, but if in 10 minutes I can find all that information out about you, then that's something you've got to pay attention to and maybe clean that up a little bit.
Yep, that's called open source intelligence here in the
Yes, it
security
is.
industry,
That's
right?
right. That's
Um, and,
right.
and it happens way, way too often
Yeah.
that all that information's put out.
Yeah. Well, let's round out the conversation about WFH, our new favorite 3-letter acronym now. WFH, work from home. Eric, tell us what to do about work from home. I love it. Our company was already virtual, so we were ready, and we do KnowBe4 training, so we're good. But how about everybody else? What can they do?
Yeah, there's definitely a case where, people have done this for a while, but there are an awful lot of people that have never done this before. And on
Yeah.
top of that, we had to react so quickly to it that we ended up sending a lot of people home. We kind of, opened up this, that, or the other thing just to keep the doors open and get people connected real quick. And now a lot of people are going back and fixing that. We just have to be careful because a lot of the things that we have and enjoy in a corporate network, a lot of the security controls and things like that may not be available to you when you're at home.
Right.
You may not have somebody patching your machine for you. You may not have the firewalls that look for known bad websites, depending on how they have you set up and whether you're VPNing in. And the bad guys know that this is a very stressful time, and it's a time full of a lot of questions. And they're using that, like the example I gave with the COVID tracker. They'll come out and say, we need to start doing this. But then people are hungry for the exactly how does this work? And the attackers know that they're working on that. And they're playing on that lack of information to get people hooked on whatever it is they're trying to do. We've seen all kinds of different angles on that, in the emails and even the voice phishing.
Yeah, they're filling in the blanks where others haven't been able to do it yet. And it's not anybody's fault because we had to really shift quickly. And I feel for people who are in that CISO spot now worrying about home routers, and the kids are all home working on whatever computer they may be able to. Sometimes I'm sure there are kids doing school on company computers, even though they're not supposed to, because that may be the only option at home. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's something we have to be paying attention to.
Yeah, and we can't blame them. Like I said, you got to keep the doors open, and you have to move quickly in these situations. And a lot of them are now having to go back and then try to shore up what it is they had to do in an
Right.
emergency.
Right.
And that's hard. That's
Yeah.
really hard.
Yeah.
These poor folks were worked to death with people calling with questions, and this didn't work, and the VPN can't handle me, and so what do I do? And yeah, there's all of these things that happen, and it's been very unfortunate, but this is what we're dealing with now. The criminals know it, they love it, and they're going after people, pretty hot and heavy.
Yeah. So I want to make sure people know that we have resources. KnowBe4 has a lot of free resources. If anybody doesn't get Stu's daily update, his blogs that he writes are so informative. They need to do that first. But also, we have a blog at CSN. We have fraud support and scamspotter.org. We really hope that people will engage with those websites to get the resources. You're not alone in this fight. If you're not an IT person or a computer person, it's okay. There's people like you and I making sure there's information out there that everybody can digest. And that's what I think people need to know is you're not alone. And the fact that, you have so many free resources and videos on your website. We have all of our stuff is free for folks. You don't even have to spend a lot of money. So for the smaller companies, get started, and then you're probably going to need to, build up to something. But if today all you can do is a little bit and a couple of free videos, great. But then engage with KnowBe4 and then find out what you really need, because at the end of the day, 90% of the breaches are coming because of a person that wasn't necessarily educated correctly and clicked on something, correct? Or answered a phone and gave something away. Is that still the deal?
Yeah, 91% of data breaches start with a spear phishing attack.
Yeah.
That's how it happens.
Yeah. Years ago, I've not been in the industry as long as you have potentially, but years ago, I remember the big issue was the bad guys would write this really extensive code and they'd break into your system. But then they got smart. They're like, well, how about I just send them an email about their lunch and then they'll click on it and I didn't have to make all that code, right? Is that where we're at?
Yeah, and the thing is, I go back to our guy who one of our guys that looks at all of these emails that get reported to us every day and check them out.
Oh,
And I'm always like, hey, his name is Eric too. So I'm like, hey, Eric, you got anything new out there? And the last, I can't even tell you how many times he's like, they're just doubling down on what they're doing because it's
yeah.
working. They don't
Right.
need to make anything really new
No.
because it
Mm-mm.
just continues to work. So
Yeah.
until we can stop that from working,
Yeah.
um, they just keep we're doing the same thing.
So
It's really
we need
frustrating.
to be the crusaders that are out there
Yeah.
stopping it from being profitable. How do we do that? We work with people that are listening right now and we give them the tools to make sure that they're not giving away their money to the bad guys. And as soon as people are not giving away their money to the bad guys or their data or whatever else it might be that has value, the sooner we can get this taken care of. So if we just keep marching forward, making sure people have the tools they need to not be a victim, then I think we're going to be in good shape. So we'll just keep fighting the good fight.
I agree 100%. And as IT professionals or security professionals, let's help support those people even at home, although I know it's kind of a hassle sometimes, but let's help support them there so that they're not afraid to come to you when something real does happen.
That's right. Good cybersecurity culture. Well, thank you so much for your time and your expertise today, Eric. It's been so great to have you as a part of the CSN team and helping us grow. And we'll always be reaching out to you for your expertise. So thank you so much for getting Cyber Threat Thursdays kicked off. And we'll have another Cyber Threat Thursday where we're going to have a guest speaker from AT&T. It's going to be September 17th. And the time will be on my LinkedIn. I'm not sure if it's the same time or not. But we're going to keep bringing these to you because I know there's a lot of great people out there like you who are ready to share their knowledge, and we cannot slow down. So thank you for being here, and thank you for all you've done for CSN.
Always happy to be here. Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you.